Hello, everyone. Our loyal six fans, welcome back to another episode of Who is the Mole, Season 5, the after show. I guess that's what I've been calling it, or something along those lines. I'm still Jamie.
And I'm Spencer, and I'm hoping that we acquired a seventh fan along the way. I'm here for fan
Maybe.
number 7.
But yeah, so we're just here to give an update on round 5 of the game, which just concluded actually last night. Was when we did our execution. So it's just the day after. We haven't moved on with the game yet because it's actually Easter Sunday today.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's actually going to happen. Honestly, I'm going to push it till tomorrow afternoon. I think is when we're going to finally move on with it. But yeah, we made it past the halfway point of the game, which feels kind of
Woo!
weird, I think,
Mm-hmm.
but also exciting. So a couple of things for this round are first, it was a 2 assignment round, so we'll go over the 2 assignments that we had. But also we had, as with every other round, a special guest, a former player. This time it was a legend and icon. Our guest was Amanda Renee, otherwise known as AR, who is our current reigning mole from our All-Star season. And she holds the very unique distinction of going completely uncovered, not uncovered, undetected in her season. So even on the final quiz, no one voted for her as the mole. So to say that she is a great um, person to have as a guest to give advice is an understatement. Spencer, your thoughts on AR?
Oh, she's great. We love AR around here.
Yes, icon. Um, so yes, we had AR, and it's actually fitting that she came for this round because this round featured one of an assignment from last season that she had just like a really cool sabotage for. And then also this round was the round where there was a change in our quiz format, which we had kind of gave the players a hint at the beginning that it was going to change at some point.
Mm-hmm.
um, so we brought back our mole statements format. Up till this point, it's all been multiple choice. So, in multiple choice, if you get the question right, you earn a point. And if you get it wrong, nothing happens. And our mole statements, they get a long list of statements, all as like one, kind of like one,
Question, one big block.
yeah, one big block. So it can be statements like the mole is male, the mole is female, the mole was on team 1, the mole was on team 2, the mole was on team 3 during the whatever the assignment was. So they can choose as many statements as they like, and they will score 1 point for every true correct statement that they choose about the mole, but they will lose 1 point for every incorrect statement that they choose about the mole. So it is very, 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 very possible to get negative scores, and that happens a lot.
You are more likely to get a negative score than a positive score in this format. Because with just the inherent list of statements, you are more likely to pick an incorrect statement than you are to pick a correct statement. And there is a minimum required amount, so you can't just submit a blank test. I think for this first one we did 4, but
yeah,
there's always at least a minimum required.
yeah. But so that's like the basics. But Spencer, what do you want to talk about first for this round?
And just I guess there's a little preamble before we get to our first assignment. There wasn't too much that was exciting this time. It was just funny because different time zones. But when I'd woken up on the first day of the new round to of their picking a new treasure, which I'm always just so excited for, the disaster that is picking a new treasurer. And
That's
just
the content we didn't know that we needed.
Really, and just people trying to people still assuming that the treasurer can't have or the treasurer has these extra powers and stuff because everyone's like, oh my god, we really can't let the mole ever be treasurer. That would be so disastrous for us if the mole is ever treasurer. Which I don't know.
Most of the cast being the treasurer at this point, it seems.
Yes, even though I think we're about half, or this going to this one, this would be 4 of the remaining 8 were happened this one.
But still enough that they could conclude what the treasurer really does.
Yeah, but so I'm just kind of very confused why what do they think the mole is going to do as treasurer, especially because we haven't even had the treasurer really do anything in a second. The treasurer didn't do anything this time, but whatever. When I'd woken up, I saw that suddenly Amanda was the treasurer, and I was like, oh, that's fun. I didn't even know she wanted to be treasurer. She would be a random group consensus, and then, oh my gosh, they did actually pick the mole as the treasurer, and shockingly, nothing disastrous happened as a result.
Yeah, it was funny because it was like pretty immediate. Amanda's like, I want to be treasurer. It's like, oh yeah, that's good. Amanda's cool.
And then it just was, and I was like, and then she messaged her diary being like, it was surprisingly easy to become treasurer. And I agreed with that.
Mhm.
The other thing that happened is that like when we ever have like the new guests come in, we do want to try to like ask them like what advice do they want to give the current players in the game. And AR has unique advice that she can give because she was a mole and not just like an actual player. So advice about like how she approached the game as the mole. And she gave this very like nice little statement about, you know, how like her big strategy was that she wouldn't really screw up. She would encourage and enable other people to make mistakes. So she would like, you know, in code names try to get people to like guess more words or like give bad clues, or like in Who Done It assignment that she had played, she had wanted to push for more clues, like get one more clue because every clue would be less money. And
It's generally helpful with solving things, but at the same time, she's making sure that when things do get solved or finished, it's worth very little.
yes, which I think was funny that in specific she had referenced that. She didn't explicitly name drop Who Done It, but she'd said push for one more clue, which is like the language of Who Done It. And that for us as hosts, like it was pretty clear that that's what she was referencing, which I thought was funny because just the previous round, the group obviously played Who Done It, and what did Amanda, the current mole, do? But you know, piggyback onto Adam and always pushing for one more clue, and that she and Adam are always people asking for the next clue from David. And so, you know, it's just funny that like if they had paid attention to the advice that Air had given them, maybe they could have figured out that at least Amanda's is a little suspicious. Maybe they wouldn't have come to a grand conclusion that like she has to be the mole, but at least it would have been like it would have gotten the gears turning. Didn't seem to, but you know the chance was there.
Mm-hmm. And yeah,
Um,
oh, sorry.
no, you go unless you were hopping into the assignment because I have like two more things left.
Well, mine's related to the assignment, but it's not the same things. It's more
Okay.
about
Okay.
or Mandarin, sorry. But with AR, it's so funny because yes, our first assignment we'll get to in a minute. Like the strategy she used there was just so great too, because it's a way that you can look like a really good, helpful player while ultimately not contributing anything because she's
Mm-hmm.
to create a question for the Yes I Have challenge that logically it would make sense that she would be close to the answer to the number she's supposed to get,
Mm-hmm.
but she really chose it because she's didn't actually think that she would.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which was nice. So the other things that Brian, whom we love, you know, always gives a round update, or at the end of the round he'll give an updated list of his ranking of like who is the most suspicious for them all. And Amanda has consistently been the least suspicious person. He does not think Amanda's mole. Always at the bottom. And with the most recent one that he had done, it was very funny because he said Amanda was last because, quote, I think Amanda has earned the most money for the pot. And I'm just like, oh, can I fact check that one? I don't know about that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah, that
just
is not actually accurate. But it's also funny because despite Amanda being his dead last again, who had the highest score on this quiz?
yes, we'll get to that later, but Brian actually did end at the top for this one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Which, we'll talk more about the quizzes at the end, getting a little jumbled here, but it is
mhm.
funny to me that so far, 5 rounds in, we've had a different top scorer every single time.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a consistent season.
No, these people are, well, they're consistently wrong. I would say, you know, there's some people that are dying on the hill of certain people being the mole, and they're just gonna keep going all in on that person until they
Write
lose.
that out.
They're gonna pull a crystal.
Who we love.
We do, obviously.
Um,
And then the very last thing that I'd had for it was that Adam had kind of talked to some people after the David's execution, talking about like his quiz strategy, and he was being open with Alex and Dexter. I think he'd at least told two people. Like it was definitely Alex, and it was either Dexter or Shandy, I think, about the fact that he was splitting on his test still very much, which is why he did very good on the last test, because he was splitting. But it was very funny to see the reactions to that, because I was like, oh, that's playing with fire. That's very dangerous. He's going to have to, he's going to have to pick a mole soon. Like, he's going to really have to like stop that, because if he keeps splitting, like, he's definitely going to get eliminated soon. And, but again, to jump forward a little bit, Adam does get eliminated this round, but it's because he gets in his own head thinking that he can't split anymore. And it's his decision to stop splitting that directly leads to him being eliminated. Which is just funny.
Yeah, we'll have
Tragic,
a lot
but
to
funny.
say about the quiz at the end, I think.
But that is all of my preamble. We can just get into the assignments now. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
If you have more preamble, you can go.
First?
Yeah, because yours happened first, so you can go.
Okay. Yeah, my assignment was the first one of the round, and it's another like returning assignment just from All Stars. We've only done it one time before. And I'll say this like just as a side note. So this next round that's starting tomorrow is just a one assignment. It's one of my new ones. And let me tell you, I am so excited for it because it is going to be quite a challenging one. And I think it's fun. So I think a lot of the players will probably hate it though. So I'm intrigued to see what their reaction is going to be. So stay tuned for that. But this time it's just another simple assignment from me, which is, it's called Yes, I Have. So it's based kind of around the simple game, Never Have I Ever. But instead of it being Never Have I Ever, each contestant is given a number, like saying that you need to create a statement that this number of people will say yes to that they have done. So for instance, if I were given the number 7, so I want 7 people to admit that they have done this, I would probably want to say something like, I have gone swimming. I wouldn't want to say something like, I have traveled to all 7 continents, because the chances of that happening for 7 people is very, very small. So everyone's just given a number and it doesn't include themselves. They don't answer their own questions. So for the other 7 members of the team, everyone was given a number randomly between 1 to 6. And they just had to create a statement that hit for that in that number. Am I missing anything, Spencer?
No, that's pretty much the whole assignment.
Yeah,
very straightforward.
Yeah. So they would submit the statement to me, and then I compiled everything together, and then just independently without talking to one another, they each answered the questions. So what are some of the examples? So for instance, Adam was looking for one yes answer. So he had asked the question, have you ever traveled to New Zealand? Thinking that probably only one person or so would do that. And I think he also knew that, I want to say Victoria probably, I think he might have known that Victoria had done that.
And we can get into in a second later, he got wrong on that one, even though he technically should have gotten that right.
And then another example, have you ever played Dance Dance Revolution was what Dexter came up with when he wanted 4 people. So it's like somewhere in the middle, like you could expect a part of the group to have done that. But I love this assignment. It is very simple, but it is gnarly because we don't reveal who answered yes and no to what question. We just answer the total. And so in this one, out of the 8 players, only 1 person scored, and that 1 person was actually Dexter with Dance Dance Revolution, which is really funny to me. So we earned money for the pot. So I will say the group should have probably got at least 2 others right, but our mole went out of her way to lie about something. So for instance, she lied about the have I ever traveled to New Zealand question, and she lied about, I want to say bungee jumping. Than bungee jumping as well.
Because she denied it later, and people were asked like, "Oh, who's all gone to New Zealand? Who all has gone bungee jumping?" She both specifically said that she hadn't done those things in the group chat.
And that is such a great way to sabotage this assignment because like there's no fact checking that people can do. And at the same time, her question, similar to AR last season, she came up with a question that was one that was reasonable for people to have gotten the right number for. I think she actually thought she'd get more people than what she needed. So she needed 5 yeses. And her question, so 5 out of 7, and her question was, have you ever owned a pet? So she was
Mhm.
thinking that it's actually going to be a little higher than that. Somehow it's actually lower. So
I
she
was
ended up
shocked.
getting to 4, which was very surprising to me.
Hmm.
But regardless, like she didn't earn money with her question, and also she did a little bit of like lies to get even less money into the pot. So gotta love that. She did great with it.
Hmm. Because obviously, and does apply to the other contestants too. Like the other contestants theoretically could have lied about like whether they've done something or not, because there's no way we can fact check it. It's just not necessarily in a contestant's interest to lie about it, because people make the questions intending for everyone to be telling the truth about it. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think it is funny because there was also like, it's very hard sabotage to catch, but theoretically it could have been caught if someone decided to like be really hard in line, like go around harassing everybody and be like, how did you answer all of these questions? And if they tried to like get out of each other how everyone answered all the things, they might have figured
Yeah.
some stuff out. But that is a lot of work and people are lazy.
Just overall, Amanda's in just such a position of trust right now. I think
Mm,
the only person who doesn't like explicitly trust her a ton is Dexter. And I think he trusts her, but like she is still on his radar. But
mhm,
I think that he is the perfect temperament for her to still be able to get away with things, because Dexter is just so wholesome. Like we love Dexter, and my favorite Dexter moment this round was when they got the results for the questions and they scored just $500. They got 1 out of 8, and he was so happy, so thrilled, thought they did such a good job as a team. And it's like, oh
mhm.
my gosh, this is great.
Woo! They did it.
Yes.
Ugh,
Did you have any other
it's funny.
thoughts on that one, Spencer?
No, I think that was it. It was pretty straightforward. I'd like to see, because it was, different. AR didn't, at least from my memory, I don't think AR lied about any of her answers. So it was fun to see Amanda try to
Yeah.
do that and how it actually did affect it. Because we didn't tell her like how everyone else had answered or what like the goals
Mhm.
were. We just gave her the question. So she was able to lie in a way that only hurt the pot and never actually helped the pot,
Yeah.
which is impressive.
Which is
Um,
great because now I can stop talking and you can tell us about the next assignment.
and the next assignment is a new assignment, but also stolen from a board game, distilled,
Yes.
inspired,
Inspired by.
adapted from,
Mhm.
and it is the game Spyfall, which how that works is everyone is given a location card. Um, and it could just be like, a pirate ship, a hotel, an embassy, a train, an airplane, a zoo, just like random list of locations. And one player is just given a card that says spy, so they don't know what location you're actually in. So the group was told that they have 24 hours, and on the assignment post, they each can ask 3 questions. Each of those questions have to be to one specific person, and you are trying to figure out who the spy is. So you're asking questions to try to figure out who doesn't know what location that we're all at. Um, and if they managed to all figure out who the spy was after 24 hours, it'd be a 24-hour discussion period. If they could figure out who the spy was, then $5,000 would be added to the pot. But if they didn't get it right after the initial 24 hours, if the spy could figure out what the location was, then they would earn an exemption. So it's a very straightforward assignment, just asking questions, then everyone yelling at each other and being shady. And it was very interesting how this one went, because for this one, we did decide to just make. Well, we asked her if she wanted to do it, and she said she would. We asked Amanda, the mole, if she wanted to be the spy or not, and she said that she would do it. So this assignment did pretty much just run like the board game itself, where there was no one who was secretly someone who knew the location that was secretly trying to sabotage the whole thing and like not catch the spy. So it was very much just everyone versus the mole, which I don't know if people really figured that out.
That,
um, yeah, and the group, I think, did a really bad job with this assignment, because like they got lucky that Amanda gave one bad answer, which I thought she did a good job defending. But just the way that they all approached it is that the questions that they had asked were all very explicit questions that had pretty explicit answers. Because I know one of them was like, I don't remember who asked it, but someone asked Dexter, like, what are you wearing? And he was like, sunglasses, sunblock, and like some other like outdoorsy kind of thing. So if you look through the list of potential locations, that pretty much limited it to like zoo, national park, and maybe like one other, a beach maybe. And just a lot of the questions that were asked with like, oh, can you spend the night here? Like the way that they asked and answered the questions made it not challenging for Amanda to figure out, because we didn't rig this game in our favor at all. We did not tell Amanda the location at the start. It was entirely on her own to figure it out, and she figured it out relatively quickly.
And it's actually great that they kind of sucked at that part, because it inherently means that everyone looks shady, because it's, if the mole is on that part of the team, like one of like the non-spies, then letting the spy know where the location is like costs the group money. So like every single person ends up being complicit in that.
Because obviously if the sooner the spy figures out the location, the easier they can blend in with the group and have better answers. But the one problem is that's just that I don't remember the exact question, but she was asked about like what's around the area, and she had said furniture, which, at least how I envision a national park here in the United States, like Yellowstone or something, not necessarily a whole lot of furniture lying around. So that was like the one thing that had caught her, but she did do a really good defense of it, where as soon as the 24 hours were up, and like we were getting questions from people being like, oh, so the mole or not the mole, the spy locked in their guess for the location, right? And they can't change it, right? So they're all just like towing the line of, can we just say the name of the location and talk about how we think people are shady for not saying that? Then Amanda was the immediate first person to name drop national park. So that, like, which really threw a bunch of people off kilter. Adam was shocked because Adam and Brian both like, I was literally typing up to accuse Amanda right now, and here she is just saying the location. They were just so shocked. When the reason that happened is because they all approached the assignment so poorly that Amanda was able to figure it out and be extremely confident in what the answer was.
That was such a boss moment from Amanda. That's going to be a standout for the season. Like, oh my gosh.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, though, because everyone was very bad in their answers, is that there weren't a whole lot of people that appeared shady in terms of the spy. There were a few people. I do think Amanda gave a good defense where she was like being like, oh, it's, a cultural thing. When I was thinking of national park, I just thought of like a normal park that has like ice cream stands and like souvenir stands and like, benches and trash cans and stuff like that. That's what she meant by furniture. She was like, I was trying to be vague. She gave what I thought would be a good defense, but the problem was that there was just no real other suspect. Like there was kind of like Shandy and Victoria, I think, had given some not perfect answers, but there weren't very many other people. So Amanda did make the choice to ultimately confess to being the spy, to look very non-molish, to earn a bunch of money for the pot, which I think was a good call, because like she probably would have been caught anyway. It was a very reasonable guess to say that she still would have been voted, just because there wasn't an adequate substitute beside her.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great social strategy, because like she was not going to get away with that regardless. So like the team would have earned the money regardless. So why not like have her be the one to help the team and therefore appear less shady?
Yeah. So that it was, I didn't expect Spyfall to go the way. I didn't know exactly how I expected it to go, but I was very entertained by the final product. So I do think I would call the assignment a success. I'm sure the group at least really liked the assignment, because they actually earned money on it, which is very common for them. Oh, but one last thing that did happen on it. They technically didn't earn full money on it. And this is like the one time that Amanda being treasurer came into effect slightly, is that Adam had a rule violation where Adam had asked Amanda the same question twice, because she initially didn't respond to it, which there's nothing in the rules that say you had to respond to a message. So, how I interpreted the rules is that theoretically I could make all my questions the same 3 questions to the same person. And like I could just ask the same question 3 times to Amanda every single time, and that would be my 3 questions. So because Adam asked the same question twice, he technically racked up 4 questions that he asked when the rules were explicit that you can only ask 3 questions.
Mhm.
So we did deduct $100 from the pot as
Which
a
is
result from
very
that.
minor. Like,
Very minor.
yeah.
You know, it wasn't a big deal, but I felt like I still wanted to, like, it was a rule violation and they should be penalized for it.
Yeah, and it worked out well because this is an example of where, like, how much was the assignment worth in general?
5,000.
It was worth 5,000. So Amanda's still able to tell the group that we earned $5,000 when really they only earned 4,900. So
Yeah,
it's very
yeah.
minor, but that is like a fun little thing.
But I think that was all for Spyfall, though, unless you had any other grand observations.
That was it. I think Amanda did a really great job, and it was really fun to see it, how it came together.
So then I guess that just means we have the absolute disaster that is this test.
Yeah. So I already talked about the format of it right at the beginning, but something that I'll say is, like, AR gave some advice, and Spencer and I, like, gave kind of a warning is what I would call that about the quiz. So
as explicit as we could without straight up telling them.
As I could. So I'm gonna find that and actually, like, try to read that out. I feel like I sent it to you.
I'm pretty sure you did.
But I am not finding it. Maybe I didn't scroll enough. Okay, I got it. So here's what was sent to them. Attention players, until this point in the game, you've tackled the standard mole multiple choice quiz. Now it's time for a change. For the foreseeable future, your quiz format will feature mole statements as featured on all previous seasons of Who is the Mole? How do mole statements work? Here's how. When you open your quiz, you will find a long list of individual statements that each may or may not be true. Example, the mole is male, the mole is female. Your quiz will tell you the minimum number of mole statements you must select that you believe to be true about the mole. There is no maximum limit to the number of statements you can choose. However, and I strongly encourage you to remember this, you earn 1 point for each correct true statement you select about the mole. However, you lose 1 point for every incorrect statement that you select about the mole. It is extremely possible to have a negative score for the entire quiz. In fact, the first player executed each season with this quiz format always leaves with a quiz score far below 0. In addition to the mole statement, your quiz will have a single multiple choice question, who is the mole? This question is just worth 1 point if you get it correct. Success. So Spencer, if you were to receive that, what would you take from it?
Maybe I shouldn't pick a whole bunch of statements. Maybe I should pick the minimum, because I'm far more likely to, the statements I pick are far more likely to be wrong than they are to be right. And so I'm far more likely to get a negative point than I am to get a positive point.
Yeah, so if we put that into, like, statistical sense, like on this quiz, there are 7 other players, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most statements will only apply to about 2 people on average. So for every statement that you choose, you are gaining a point for 2 people, but you are losing a point for 5 people. So, like, that's pretty simple math. So as your score goes up for 2, it goes down very far, very quickly for the majority of people. So what were some of the findings that we had from this quiz?
No one really took that to heart. Well, they essentially formed 3 camps. One camp had just Brian in it, because Brian was the one person to pick the minimum number of statements, which he should have, because forever ago, when we had talked to him about the mole when we were playing Whodunit, or when we were hosting him in Whodunit, I think at the end, like, we had talked about the mole, and, like, the statements test had come up, and we had talked about, like, you know, you really should pick the minimum of it. And so, like, I'm glad he did take that warning to heart, like, many months ago, whenever we had talked about that.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping other people would. That's why we were so explicit with, like, the statement that was sent out. But.
Yes. Then there was what I would call the women camp, because all of the women kind of got it. They didn't pick the minimum. They each only picked 6 statements. So they kind of took the calculated risk of, I shouldn't pick a bunch of statements, but I'm going to go a few more over the minimum, which is fine. That's not egregious. But then the rest of the men, however, picked. I think Alex picked. He picked 9 statements. Adam did 10 statements, and Dexter did 12 statements.
Mm-hmm. Dexter, however, like, yes, that strategy I would say is a poor one to choose the statements because his scores were very low for a number of people. But he is the one person who is, I think we could agree, who is purposefully spreading on them all. So, like, it ended up being fine for him, but it's still not a great overall strategy because if he were wrong, he'd be in trouble.
It is very dangerous because looking at his test, he most deliberately spread on Victoria. Every single statement he picked applied to Victoria. Or not every single statement, but he picked every statement that did apply to Victoria.
Plus some others.
Mm-hmm.
Let me turn this off.
Oh, give me a second.
Okay. Dinner's ready.
Oops, sorry about that quick pause, but it's fine. We're continuing. Nothing happened. So anyway, yeah, Dexter, 8 of the 12 statements that he picked applied to Victoria. And then 6 statements that he picked applied to Amanda. But because he also picked like some incorrect statements, he only, at the end of his test, like he only ended up with a positive score on Victoria, and he managed to get a 0 on Amanda. And then everyone else was -6 or lower. So
yeah,
like
for comparison of like the importance of like not doing much. So like for Brian, for instance, he didn't purposefully put questions on Amanda. I don't think. It just so happens that 3 of the 4 that he did pick, because they also hit his top suspect, like just happened to hit her. But like the key takeaway there is he only picked 4 statements. So at the lowest, he could have had a -4 for someone. Which he didn't even do because he spread in a way to hit everyone at least once. But even still, if he had a -4 on every person, he would have been safe regardless of who the mole is. So like that really just speaks to like the importance of like not, picking too many.
Yeah. So Adam, and or not Adam, Dexter's, very lucky in the fact that like, because other people took the test worse than Victoria, because there was a minute where we did think Victoria was going to be eliminated. Because everyone else took it so poorly, Victoria stayed in the game because like, even though like it's not good logic ultimately because you truly never know how other people are taking the test. If Victoria went, he would then basically just go right all in on Amanda, because that would be at least logically looking at how he took the test if he's aware of it. Like everyone else he scored very low on. So people, which is funny because like Victoria this time is just like the highest suspect.
Yeah, Victoria like kind of we jumped up as the highest, but I would say Victoria, Dexter is still on some people's radar, as is Brian. And I think a little bit Alex. Those are, I'd say, the top 4. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Even just like this, you can look at people's scores on Amanda. Like,
yeah, I'd say Amanda, Jessica, and Shandy are like the 3 lower suspects for most people.
So, Adam did keep our warning true, though, where we had said whenever we first putting out this format, the first person eliminated always leaves with a very low score. Adam left this game with a score of -10. He picked 10 statements and none of the statements hit Amanda. So he ended with
sad,
-10.
Like I expected this to happen for someone. I wasn't necessarily predicting who it would be. It is sad because like I really like Adam. He's always lovely to host. He's funny. He's shady. So, hopefully we'll see him again. But yeah.
And it became down to the fact because like there was this pressure on him that he should stop spreading. And so, he did stop spreading. He mostly went in on looking at it. He did a bit more spreading than say other people because there was, Like,
The Victorias of the world.
yes, the Victorias, who all of her statements hit Brian, I think. She only did 6 statements, but every single statement hit Brian. Those were the 6 statements that she picked, were the 6 that applied to Brian. So everyone else's score was incidental. So there's a bit more deliberate spreading still happening on Adam's test, but it was mainly focused on Alex, Brian, and Shandy, with none put on Amanda, 1 put on Dexter, 1 put on Jessica, and then 3 put on Victoria.
Yeah, and as a small side note, Victoria did use her freebies this round.
Oh yeah, she did finally use her 2 freebies.
So where the game is free of advantages at this point.
And there's next assignment, if I remember correctly, should be their last chance to earn anything. This group has done a very good job of keeping advantages out of the game, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. What are we missing, do you think?
I don't know. We screamed about spreading a lot, and that the statements test is hard, and then people aren't really listening to us. I guess it's kind of like the bold prediction, even though it's certainly always hard to, because like suspicions change over around. This is not a group that is. Victoria's in love with her suspicion of Brian, and that's not really going to change. But for most of the people, like their suspicions are a bit more fluid. They'll swing a bit, but at least as how it looks right now, Brian, I would expect to stay for the long haul. It's funny because like on the standard multiple choice question test, I've expected Brian to have been eliminated this round, but because we switched formats, it's just very funny how even that can change who gets eliminated. I think Brian's going to stay a bit.
Good strategy of how to do it. And as a side note, this was pre-planned. Like we always had to switch to this format at this point.
It was going to be 4, and then I think 4, and then we're going to switch it, right?
Then we're going to do a combination.
Yeah.
We've had this format every single season. Like this is the only season. Actually, we did like 2 rounds in All Stars, but apart from All Stars, there's one quiz that was only multiple choice.
Yeah.
So, Jessica also just continues to be a highlight because she really picks up on like things to note in the game, which is really fun. And like she'll like give us like a little bit of comments here and there about like, I'm taking notes on this and taking notes on how you're posting the thumbprints and taking notes on how you're doing the results. Like, like I see you, and I love that.
She's reading our minds.
I think we can do more of like an in-depth like player analysis for each person next time, because we want to do the mid-season interviews with everyone this round anyway. So like we can talk about what comes of those.
Oh yeah, that's true. Sounds good to me then.
Yeah, I think I've spoken my piece.
I've said my truth.
Yes, I've lived my truth.
Well, I guess that's it then. I'll let Jamie do the sign off because it's what they usually do.
Thank you again to our loyal 6 followers here.
7
followers here at Spend Jam Productions, LLC. Although we're not really licensed or anything. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.